We begin with Isadora Duncan, often referred to as the mother of modern dance. Isadora Duncan was born in 1877 and was an American pioneer of dance, is a really important figure both in the arts but also in history. She was revolutionary and she had great influence on dance that spread from America to Europe and Russia. She created a huge sensation everywhere she performed. Her style of dancing was very different than the rigidity of ballet, and she championed the notion of free spirit. She very much looked to the high ideals of ancient Greece with beauty, philosophy, and humanity. And she brought into being a completely new way to dance. Isadora Duncan, in many ways, can be credited with inventing what we now know as modern dance. Free-flowing costumes, bare feet, loose hair. She took to the stage and was inspired by the ancient Greeks, the music of classical composers, as well as nature, the wind and the sea, and all of that is very much reflected in the way that she danced. Isadora helped to elevate dance to a high place among the arts and bringing the discipline and its roots as a sacred art. She embraced artists and philosophers and writers, as well as her teachers and her guides. She traveled the world and spread her dance and her ideas, and she had a great impact on the world stage. She achieved notoriety and success, and she actually became somewhat of a celebrity. Many important artistic and cultural people of her day, like Rodin and Fokine, Nijinsky, Gertrude Stein, they all paid tribute to her in their writings and their sculptures, their own artwork, their poetry. Some of the characteristics of her dancing included, like I said, free-flowing dance, hopping, skipping, flowing hands, lots of open torso, graceful, long arms, walking, running, skipping. There was a childlike and free nature to the way that she moved. She was an independent woman, very much so for her time, and she vowed to never marry. But out of wedlock, she had a daughter whose father was a famous set designer at that time, Edward Craig. And their passionate love affair ended after several years, but she remained friends with the father, with Edward. Her second child was fathered by a wealthy heir to the sewing machine fortune, Paris Singer. And Singer, he had great wealth. He underwrote a lot of Duncan's work, as well as one of her dance schools prior to the World War I outside of Paris. In 1913, tragically, both of Isadora's children drowned with their nanny when their car rolled into the Seine River in Paris. She was absolutely devastated at losing her family. She somehow picked up the pieces and moved to Italy. I think it was just too hard for her to stay in Paris at that time, so she moved to Italy. She was also somewhat interested in politics. She was really taken with the social and political revolution that led to the creation of the Soviet Union. She believed that her work and her voice could contribute to a free and heroic society. And she followed her conviction and her passion and moved to Moscow in 1921 and made arrangements with the new government there to found another new school of dance. Isadora Duncan's death was as dramatic as her life. On September 14th in 1927, she came across a young driver in Nice, France, and suggested that he take her for a spin in his convertible sports car. And as she took off, reportedly, the story goes, she shouted back to her friends in French, which I won't try to butcher. She said, "Goodbye, my friends, I go to glory." And just moments after, she had this long trailing scarf that she was sort of known to wear, very dramatic. This very, very long scarf was trailing behind her. and it got entangled in the rear wheel of the car and it broke her neck instantly, and that's how she died. And here we'll just take a very short look at a clip of a reenactment of some of Isadora Duncan's movement. Ruth St. Denis lived from 1879 to 1968. She started out as an eccentric showgirl, and then one day she happened upon a cigarette ad of an Egyptian goddess, and in that moment she had this idea of using dance to tell the stories of exotic civilizations. And soon after, she was a solo performer on Broadway. She was known for these various exotic dances fashioned from folklore of Japan, China, and India. And today, honestly, we would consider a lot of these dances rather appropriation. They weren't a part of her own culture. She was taking from others. But at that time, they were eccentric. And people didn't travel the same way then that they do now. So this was many people's way of traveling and visiting these exotic places. She was known as a really incredible performer. Any performance by Miss Ruth was distinguished by her remarkable stage presence. And in fact, her solos even now are very difficult to reproduce because they demand a high level of charisma, manipulation of costumes and props, and a profound belief in the mystical powers of the dance. She actually continued to dance well into her 80s. She was quite modest. She characterized her later performances as moving with remembered beauty. Her portraits and her work are treasured and remembered today at Jacob's Pillow, which is a major dance hub. I hope that you all can learn a little bit about Jacob's Pillow. And it's a national historic landmark for dance. She was one of the first people that built that place, and she's remembered there for her work. Ted Shawn, along with Ruth St. Denis, founded Denishawn in 1915, a company and a dance school, and one of the major origins of modern dance. Denis and Shawn were married, and Shawn was one of the first men to earn national recognition for dance. So Denishawn toured the US from 1915 to 1931 and had many of the most influential modern dancers of the world in their company, many that we still know today, including Martha Graham, whom we'll learn about in just a little bit, Doris Humphrey, Charles Weidman, and those three alone had huge impacts on the dance world that are still felt now. And they were a part of Denishawn, so that's where they were founded. Ted Shawn also founded Jacob's Pillow, which is a major hub, national landmark, really important for you to know. Now I've mentioned it twice. Ted Shawn and his dancers built Jacob's Pillow. It started off as a farm, and it's just a really, really lovely place for dance. He created a technique that was based on thematic material. A lot of his movements are what some might consider masculine movements. He incorporated a lot of different ethnic cultures into his dance, similar to Ruth St. Denis. And he really, along with Denishawn, elevated the American dance form. I'm just going to show you a very short clip so you can see Ted Shawn and his men dancers, as they were called. And they're actually, the backdrop is Jacob's Pillow. You can see one of the barns there that was used as one of the dance centers. course, watching dance on Zoom, it's very choppy, and then watching an old dance on Zoom is extra choppy, but I hope it at least gives you a little bit of idea. Sometimes seeing something as opposed to just hearing it can be quite helpful. And just a quick little recap, just because this module, there are a lot of names, a lot of concepts and places and times, and I want to try to find ways to help you so that it's easier to organize and remember all of these things. So again, this module is about modern, and then we'll get into postmodern dance a bit later. We started with Isadora Duncan, just a few key points that would be important to remember. She was born in 1877. She's often considered the mother of modern dance. She was very influenced and inspired by Greek beauty, philosophy, humanity. Her dance was known as a free-flowing dance. We saw that short clip of her skipping and running. She was respected by the great artists of her time, like Rodin. She had a very tragic personal life. Remember that her children drowned. She believed in a free and heroic society, which is why she eventually moved to Moscow to begin a dance school there. And she had a tragic and dramatic death with the scarf wrapped around her neck, being tugged underneath the convertible car as she drove off. And here are just a couple of drawings by Rodin of Isadora Duncan. We spoke about Ruth St. Denis. She was born in 1879 and lived to 1968. She began as a show girl, but she had that moment where she was really inspired by the cigarette ad with the Egyptian goddess. She began a really profound solo performance career that was known for being very exotic and drawing from places around the world. And then we learned about Ted Shawn. So Ruth St. Denis and Ted Shawn married, and they created the Denis Shawn Company and School that helped promote a lot of the really huge dance icons that we're going to learn about later. So this is why Denis Shawn is good to know. It was really the birthplace of some of these major modern masters that you will hear about in this module. They also built Jacob's Pillow, and I mentioned it a few times. It's a national landmark. It's the only national landmark for dance. And I hope that you find this interesting. San Jose State University, our dance program was selected out of the whole country to go and perform there last summer. It was very, very exciting. And then also Ted Shawn started the Men Dancers Company, and I showed you that short clip. So I hope a little recap will give you a chance to keep all of these things organized and in your mind, because learning about history can be a little tough. Okay, thanks everybody.